A federal judge is now warning we're past the question of a constitutional crisis in a rare rebuke of the Justice Department. At issue, prosecutions brought during the president's law enforcement surge in Washington, D.C. The judge chastised prosecutors, accusing them of losing credibility and, quote, playing police for people at the administration, playing cops and robbers like children. And he sharply questioned whether the DOJ was even still adhering to a principle that is spelled out in the Justice Manual, that they should bring only winning cases. And it's not just harsh comments. That judge is now demanding the DOJ either expunge the record of someone they arrested and then dropped charges against, or explain why they won't. Joining me now, former federal prosecutor, MSNBC legal analyst Paul Butler, former federal judge and president of Dickinson College, John Jones. Back with me is MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin. Lisa, take us inside that courtroom. What happened there? What is in that? Because it reads not like anything I've seen.
No, it's absolutely brutal. So this was supposed to be a hearing in the case of Edward Dana. He was a defendant who was arrested essentially for punching out a streetlight on the exterior of a building in D.C. He was also intoxicated. And after he was arrested, he made some comments about fascism in the United States, and during which he made some threats, basically saying that he would take on anybody who came after him. He would F them up, so to speak, and also said that that included the president of the United States. That's the point at which the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of D.C. charged him with the federal crime of making a threat against the president. At yesterday's hearing, only 26 minutes before it began, the U.S. Attorney's Office notified Magistrate Judge Zia Faroukli that they wanted to dismiss the charges, and the rest of the hearing was focused on, why do you keep doing this? Why are we now approaching double digits of people that have been arrested during this surge of troops in D.C. against whom you cannot sustain charges, either because a grand jury doesn't vote to indict or because you see things like body-worn camera that make you second-guess your own judgment? And during it, can I read, Chris, if I can, from a little bit of the transcript? Judge Faroukli was a federal prosecutor for 12 years in D.C., has been on the bench for 5, and he says, it doesn't make any sense to me. It should not be asymmetrical that only the punitive parts of the office, meaning the U.S. Attorney's Office, are available, that the carceral sides are available. But when it comes to doing the right thing for presumed innocent people, then it's when we get to it, we'll get to it. That simply is not going to work. The offices, it's not fair to me to say they're losing credibility. We're past that point in my life as a federal prosecutor, and I will say decorated by the prior U.S. attorneys, not myself. I have never then nor now seen in my life the volume of motions to dismiss federal criminal complaints.
Paul, the U.S. attorney in D.C., Jeanine Pirro, was just asked about this. Let me play what she just said.
I'm not going into grand juries and telling them what to do and what not to do. That is their prerogative. We are advisors to grand juries. We tell them what the law is. We present cases that are clearly based on the evidence. My job as a prosecutor is to bring criminals into court and to try to prove my case beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm not into going back and forth with judges. I was a judge, okay? That's not what I did as a judge. So we need to leave politics out of it. I'll do my job. He should do his job as a judge and leave his politics out of it.
What do you make of that response, Paul?
Chris, this is high drama because judges and prosecutors rarely criticize each other. They have to work together every day. The judge is mad that Jeanine Pirro is throwing the book at people in federal court when most of these are not federal cases. They're more properly charged as low-level misdemeanors in D.C. Superior Court. When prosecutors are forcing people to languish in jail for days while they try to figure out what charges they want to bring. We had a young man who was pulled over for a traffic stop. Cops found a gun that he was licensed to carry, a little bit of weed. This guy got locked up for a week before his case was dismissed. So yesterday, the judge said that Jeanine Pirro herself should come to court to explain what the heck she's doing, what she's ordering her prosecutors to do. He said she didn't have the dignity to show up in court, even though that's what a real leader would do.
I thought, Judge, that our courts were overcrowded. I thought, in speaking over the years to any number of public defenders, that they can barely keep up with their caseload as it is. I know prosecutors who will tell you the hours that they work and they put in. And then you have the judge saying to the DOJ that you've tarnished the reputation of the district attorney's office, that there's no credibility left. How do you see this?
Well, I move to say, first of all, that apropos of my co-panelists' comments, that the next stop for Jeanine Pirro might be to Judge Faruqi's courtroom, like it or not, and there are no TV cameras there, and they might have an interesting conversation. I find it, pretty absurd that she projects this on everybody else and not on her folks. I feel badly for the prosecutors in the sense that they're probably taking their orders from the top. And what Judge Faruqi said is they're trying to pad statistics, arrest statistics, and that leaves the U.S. attorneys in a very, very difficult position. Chris, the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution has two key components. One is the right to have your case presented to a grand jury, and the other is you can't be deprived of your liberty without due process. And both of them intersect and come into play in this case. And finally, with Jeanine Pirro, it's absolutely laughably absurd that she would say that she's not going to try to convince a grand jury what to do. U.S. attorneys do that every day. The old adage, which and my panelists know, that you can indict a ham sandwich if you want to. Maybe it's because these cases that are being presented to the grand jury are so laughably thin that, even a grand jury with no rebuttal can't find a way to indict people. It's, I feel sorry for the professionals in the U.S. Attorney's Office, but they need to listen to what the judge is saying, because this is a clown show.
Well, there's also a question about what this might mean for prosecutors' offices, I think, in many parts of the country. And I say that because you do have a situation where, as you mentioned, folks might consider whether or not it's worth it anymore. If you're a good lawyer, you don't become a prosecutor to get rich. You become.
Donald Trump wants you to believe that his administration is being tough on crime, that is one of their big pursuits. And if there is one crime that the Trump administration says it absolutely will not tolerate, one crime that they will go to the ends of the earth to prosecute, it's this one.
My main focus is on getting rid of mortgage fraud and finding mortgage fraud no matter who commits it. Democrats, Republicans, it doesn't matter.
If it's a Republican who's committing mortgage fraud, we're going to look at it. If it's a Democrat, we're going to look at it.
It doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or Democrat or a Fed governor or somebody who mans a convenience store. If you commit mortgage fraud, you need to be held accountable, period.
All right. That guy's talking tough. That was Trump's director of the Federal Housing Finance Authority, Bill Pulte, saying that this administration is laser focused on prosecuting mortgage fraud, no matter who commits it. But here's the thing. So far, all of the people who Bill Pulte has accused of mortgage fraud have one thing in common. They're all people that the president considers his enemies. In April, Bill Pulte asked the Justice Department to investigate New York's Democratic Attorney General, Letitia James, to the Department of Justice for alleged mortgage fraud. In May, Bill Pulte asked the Justice Department to investigate another Democrat, Senator Adam Schiff, for alleged mortgage fraud. Earlier this month, he did it again, this time alleging that Federal Reserve Board Governor Lisa Cook committed mortgage fraud. Trump then used those claims as a pretext to fire Lisa Cook from the Federal Reserve. And today, NBC News reports that the Department of Justice has officially opened a criminal investigation into Lisa Cook. None of those officials have admitted any wrongdoing, and both Lisa Cook and Letitia James have suggested that the allegations against them are the result of a clerical error. But Bill Pulte says that doesn't matter.
There are a lot of other people that have been criminally referred, and they don't have this type of benefit being given to them, which is, maybe it's a clerical error and maybe it's this. Did you sign these documents or did you not?
Bill Pulte definitely wants people to believe he has a zero-tolerance policy for mortgage fraud. But watch what happens when Bill Pulte was asked about credible allegations that Texas's pro-Trump Republican Attorney General committed this same type of mortgage fraud.
Ken Paxton, Texas Attorney General, running for U.S. Senator, U.S. Senate, there's at least, it looks like, 3 examples, working examples right now of what could be described as alleged mortgage fraud. Is that something you're looking at?
As I said, unless it's something that's either been made public by lawyers like Norm Eisen or in criminal referrals, I'm not going to comment on any specific situation. If things are made public, then or if we decide to make them public, then I will talk about it.
Okay. So Bill Pulte is happy to talk about alleged mortgage fraud by Democrats, but he can't talk about mortgage fraud allegations against Republicans, not unless it's, quote, made public or if we decide to make it public. Now, set aside how much that last part seems to contradict everything he just said. The allegations against Ken Paxton have already been made public. I mean, a simple Google search of Ken Paxton and mortgage fraud pulls up quite an array of articles from a range of national and local outlets who have been reporting on Paxton's mortgages for months. Paxton's Republican primary opponent, John Cornyn, has even started running attack ads all about Ken Paxton's mortgage problem. And Ken Paxton isn't even the only Republican that Bill Pulte seems to be ignoring. Today, ProPublica reports that not one, not two, but 3 separate Trump cabinet members appear to have committed this same type of mortgage fraud. Trump's Labor Secretary, Lori Chavez-DeRemer, his EPA Administrator, Lee Zeldin, and his Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, all have mortgages on more than one home, which they claim as their primary residence. When asked for comments, spokespeople for each of those officials suggested they had done nothing wrong. A spokesperson for EPA Administrator Zeldin said that
you could see judges standing up, judges warning Trump, trying to yell to the masses, going up to the mountaintop and screaming and yelling and saying, Mr. Trump, you're doing something wrong, but also as a warning to everybody observing that this isn't normal. It is not normal. Trump's weaponization of the justice system, his abuse of it, his open transactional approach to it is not something we've seen from recent presidents. It's not. Every president makes appointments to the courts based on a mixture of judges they feel are competent and judges they feel will uphold their vision, uphold their policies. Anyone that tells you the courts are not partisan is lying. The judges in the United States are politicians. They are. I know it's not politically correct to say, but they are. But they're not full politicians. They are sort of a hybrid, right? They're sort of a hybrid in that role. And they're not necessarily full-on partisans, even though they serve a political function. And the fact is, Donald Trump is trying to hypercharge their existence as partisan actors, and as specifically MAGA. And what judges are saying is, we're not just expected to, in a philosophical sense, uphold a set of ideals consistent with the man or the party that appointed us, but rather we are expected as if we owe something to Donald Trump. That as conservative judges, we must pay Donald Trump. Liberal judges also are expected to do it even though they don't owe anything to Trump. But the idea is, like a mafia boss, we owe protection money to Donald Trump. He got us this job, even if he didn't, but he thinks he got us this job. And so we owe him a ruling that makes him richer, that allows his unconstitutional policies to happen, that blocks challenges, however reasonable, to his unconstitutional policies, and on and on and on. And it's all coming to a head. And judges are speaking out. We've covered a judge. She was a judge whose son was killed out of revenge for her taking on like rich and powerful crooks, right? Now, that had nothing to do with Trump directly, but she's been speaking out saying, what happened to my family and to my son is made more possible by how Trump villainizes the justice system. And she is 100% right.